Look, it's great to be here to support my old friend Keith. As he said, we worked very closely together when he was leader of Redbridge Council, and he was one of our staunchest allies and collaborators at City Hall. If you'll remember, the first few months of Boris's tenure at City Hall were pretty choppy. And as we came out of them, we were very glad of Keith's support. And he did some great things on the council, as I say, not least being one of the leading lights in embracing the idea that local authorities could step into the crime agenda with confidence. And as you say, paying for police officers on a buy one, get one free basis to get them on the street, and critically helping us get that rape crisis centre underway. It was a key plank, if you like, of our election campaign back in 2008. A key promise, and getting it delivered quickly was absolutely a priority for us. And Keith was by far and away the most innovative council leader. There is a fear abroad. People do feel unsettled about a sense of order and control on London streets, and the political leadership that's behind that. And sadly, I think this is broadly what's lacking. I mean, in the end, if you're going to deal with crime in a city like London or indeed Liverpool or wherever, you need two ingredients. You need a good and committed and efficient police force and dedicated police officers who will get out there and do some of the really quite difficult, challenging work that's required. But critically, you need to give them political cover. You need to make people believe and know that you are committed, that you care, that every single death matters to you, that every single crime is your personal responsibility, for better or worse. And when the city feels that commitment, when they see it, they start to feel better, first of all, about some of the challenging and difficult things the police have to do, like stop and search, but also they feel comforted by the fact that their political leaders care. And so we instituted, within days of taking office, Operation Blunt 2, which was a really widespread use of stop and search across the city. Over the 2 or 3 years that it was in place, I think we took something like 11,000 knives off the street. If only 1% of them had been used to kill somebody, that would be 110 more murders, right? It was a big, widespread operation. We flooded the transport network with police officers at transport nodes and hubs, put them on the buses and the tube, so that we could grip the network on the basis that many of the criminals that were travelling around the city were using a public transport network. We needed to do something immediately about the knife crime problem in London. And slowly but surely, as the numbers started to fall, the numbers of killings reduced, people started to realise that what we were doing was the right thing. And critically more than that, they realised that we were bothered. If you're going to deal with a youth crime problem like we had in London at the time, you not only need the kind of heavy-end enforcement to see an immediate suppression effect, you also need to do some of the long-term work with children to turn them away from a life of crime. Something happens at the transition to secondary school and they start dropping out and not attending school, making sure that they have rigorous, disciplined activity. We put in place a project called U London, where we put money into uniform groups, scouts, guides, cadets, to give young people the opportunity of structured, socialized activity on a regular basis, where they could form attachments with responsible adults who would steer them in the right path. We recognized that when kids went into Feltham for the first time, that was probably our last chance to turn them around. And so we paid for and created a new wing at Feltham called the Heron Wing, where boys who wanted that last chance could live under a different regime, where they washed their own clothes, cooked their own food, they ate with the guards. They had more of a resettlement broker who worked with them before release and then helped them after release to stay on the straight and narrow. We tried our best to create a mentoring scheme, particularly for young black men, so that they could see role models that they could respect and connect with, to show them that there was a life beyond the gangs in London. We tried to be as innovative, as active and responsible and committed as we possibly could be, because that's what Londoners were thirsting for after a period of indifference. And sadly, from my point of view, notwithstanding the political difference between me and Sadiq Khan. I don't feel that commitment from City Hall. I don't feel the mayor stepping into crime as an area of absolute priority that he is personally invested in, and that he feels personal responsibility for. Because the one thing we know about Londoners, but frankly about the British people, is that they want to know that politicians care, that you are committed to their safety, the safety of their children, the future of their families, and that you're willing to take the rough and the smooth, not just show up for the great spending announcements and all the rest of it, but show up when things go wrong as well, and take the fire for that too. Politics is about absorbing people's anger as much as it is trying to please them. And it's that kind of commitment that we need now on a national basis. We owe them the fact that we care about their children, all their children, whatever colour, wherever they live in the city or the country. We owe them our protection, and we should be busting our guts to make sure that they are as safe as possible. And I know that as Keith goes into his election campaign over the next few months, that's exactly where he's going to be. Because one of the things I learnt about him in our time together is that he is an incredibly committed politician who cares about where he lives, who is of where he lives, and is willing to take the rough with the smooth. And the one thing I hope all his electors know about him is that he is bothered about them and their children in a way that's rare in politicians. So I'm very pleased to support him today. And I hope to God that the people of that part of London elect him in resounding numbers next May, and send someone to City Hall whoever wins, Sean or Sadiq, holds them to account for that notion of responsibility to us and to our children. Hope you win, Keith.
He has increased it now, but I think we are still paying the price for that, because once that genie gets out the bag, it's so difficult to put it on. Totally agree with your with what you said. In fact, it's something I've been saying for a long time now. Stop and search, things like that. They literally arrest the crime, but the only solution is in the longer term. The health approach, the looking at the families, working with the young people, especially in that transition period. Work I do with one of the charities that I work with is, in fact, it's now been adopted across the whole of London, is that we go in and see people when they're in A&E, and we find that at that point, if a young person who's the victim of knife crime is in A&E, that's ironically when they're very susceptible, very
dead right
of to us talking to them and trying to find a way out for them. Care. You cared. Boris cared. Khan doesn't. You can tell when you get him an MQT, when you start to drill down on his policies, he doesn't care. The only thing he cares about is becoming the next leader of the Labour Party.